So I understand that we are the last panel before the breakout session. So in the spirit of inclusivity, which we've been speaking about because this conference is all about relationships and knowledge and teaming and partnerships, another segment of the federal marketplace that we haven't really touched on yet is that of the service-disabled, veteran-owned small business community. And I'm really pleased to be joined up here this afternoon by Doc and Xavier. And Doc, can you tell us a little bit more about what Vets 2 PM does and your ecosystem that you're building?
Sure. Thanks, Trevor, and thanks so much, SGA, for having us out. What a treat. Hey, before I get started, though, so first, a mea culpa. I'm not a GovCon expert. I don't even play one on TV. But I know the guys and gals at SGA, and I also got Mike Lejeune in the crowd. So I do know some legitimate GovCon experts. So that's where I get most of my knowledge. The second thing is, real quick before we get started, how many veterans do I got in the room? Right on. Thank you all. So I'm an old Navy welder. That's how I got into the AEC space. About 10 years ago, started a small training and staffing company helping military veterans do meaningful, lucrative post-service careers. That was 10 years ago, and since then we've put over 17,000 of them to work in corporate America, about a third of them probably with GovCon, so that's what gets me in this space. That's what we do.
And Xavier, can you tell us about competitive range solutions?
Yeah, first I just want to say thank you for having me, Trevor and SGP, and thank you to the veterans out there. So a little bit about myself first, and then I'll talk a little bit about my company. So I'm Xavier Watson, went to South Carolina State University with one of the gentlemen that's back there in the back that I haven't seen for like a long time. Great to see you. He's actually a veteran as well, too. But a little bit about myself. So back in 1996 in South Carolina, I had a scholarship to go to West Point University, the Army University. But at that same time, my father, he was in Special Forces and he got injured at that time. So I decided to take a break and not go to school after high school so that I can take care of him for a year. But I still wanted to serve my country. So when I moved here to the Washington, D.C. area back in 2001, I became a government contractor back then, and I've worked in large companies, I've worked in small companies, and what I'm doing here at this service-disabled veteran-owned small business is something that's really, really great, which I'll kind of get into in a little bit. So we are Competitive Range. We are a small business that basically provides management and technology consulting specific to the DoD. We decided early on, instead of being all things to many, like a lot of companies are, we decided to be many things to one or two customers, and we've been very successful at it. We have our top secret facility clearance. We're ISO 9001 certified, and we also have a DCA-approved accounting system. We recently won a $400 million IDIQ at DISA, where we're doing a lot of work at DISA. I have over 25 task orders there now, and we're also doing some pretty cool stuff for the Army. But as everybody knows, in this particular, under the administration, a lot of things, can change. So what we decided to do is to be very close to the network. When I say network, I'm specifically referring to the DODN, which is the DoD Information Network. And that network has a no-fail mission. So that's one of the things that you're going to understand when you work with a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, is that you have people that understands that missions cannot fail. And because we work on a no-fail mission, we feel like those particular types of contract and that particular body of work is going to be safe because it is needed, it's mission critical, and it's very important to the success of the things that happens in this nation from a DoD side. Thank you.
One quick note, though. I mean, you use that word consulting, and especially in this environment, we've heard before, consulting is zero value, you don't do anything, you're just a middleman expense, but DISA doesn't seem to agree.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I do say management and technology consulting, but to pull on that thread a little bit, to take it a little bit further, we specifically focus on the 541 NICS codes. So that's basically IT services for everybody in here. And what we're doing there is we're doing more of the high-end services. We don't do, my company, we don't necessarily do the junior services. We do subject matter expertise type services where we're actually providing something to the government. We have specific deliverables. We're not just delivering like a packet. We actually have folks that are going out turning wrenches and putting boxes in and taking boxes out and doing things like that to the government. And then after we do that, after we provide that service, then we tell the government, hey, we did this, and we think that the best approach going forward would be to do X, Y, Z because of what we did here. But thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely, and I mean, so Competitive Range Solutions is doing very sophisticated work for very sophisticated agencies in very dangerous areas. But Doc, can you explain sort of how SDVOSBs and how veterans more in general, maybe you disagree, I don't think you would, but are uniquely qualified and capable of delivering exceptional results in those sort of environments?
Sure. So Xavier just kind of hit on it. We've been trained. It's in our DNA. We don't fail, right? We'll figure it out, and we will succeed, or we'll die trying, right? So imagine having a business partner like that. There will be no mission failure. They will adapt. They will overcome. They will do things with duct tape and paper clips, and we'll MacGyver it, right? So whatever teaming agreement or JVs or whatever you consider with a SDVOSB, it'll get done. They'll do what they tell you they'll do. And then you add a little bit to that. I mean, we heard the last panelist. I don't know about y'all, but I'm not running a charity, right? So it's not just perform and do what the government asked you to do to the standard they asked you to do it, but it's make a buck while we're doing it too, right? Put some kids in college and pay some employees and do good things. So in my mind, and I'm biased, obviously, SDVOSBs make great partners because you don't have to babysit them. You give them X% of the work, you can expect that X% of the work gets done.
And are you, so go ahead, Xavier.
I appreciate that. I was just gonna touch on that as well. So one of the things that you also get with service disabled veteran owns is, I like to pull on the thread, mission, right? So we hire a lot of veterans, and the work that we do, so we've done that same type of IT services at 234 military bases globally around the world. So I don't have to worry when I send a team of 30 people out to 40 countries to do a job, within a 10-month period of time, that they're not gonna mess up that job. They're not gonna break stuff. I'm not gonna, have to worry about things. I mean, there are certain things that happen in different geographical regions within the country, but that's kind of like outside of our control. But outside of that, like, when you send a veteran out to do a job, they understand that they need to do that job, period. Right? That's one of the things that you're going to get when you partner with a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. And additionally, we understand that our customer has a mission. So when a customer comes to us with a problem, we're not going to try to sell them on everything that we can do. And that's one of the challenges that I see with a lot of companies that do business in GovCon, is that when a customer comes to them with a problem, and let's just say market research, for example, they like to give them a capability statement that just blurts out everything that they can do. And the customer's not looking for that. The customer's looking for, can you help me solve my problem? And when you partner with a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, we understand that we're trying to help the customer solve their problem. They don't care about all of the other stuff that we do, so we don't try to oversell them on things. And because of that, we've been very successful at helping the customers to solve whatever missions that they have. Thank you.
And it sounds like, in addition to mission drive and mission capability, it's the marketplace is quickly turning to technical expertise. So not only do you know how the DoD operates, how the Department of State operates, how agencies operate internally, but there's also that subject matter expertise, or gov speak, that comes along with veteran status. And how do you think that effectively teams with the tribal 8As that we have here? Because we've got two groups, and the reason why I bring this up is the SBA administrator in her day one memo wrote that they were going to reduce the 15% SDB, or socially disadvantaged business goaling percentage, from 15 to 5, and they cited this as, we're reducing it because that harms veterans. It takes opportunities away from veterans. I mean, does that jive? It sounds like maybe not. Maybe not. A zero-sum game.
I think it's agency dependent, but in general, so for example, a lot of the SDVOSBs I work with, think, hey, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to chase DoD customer or component agencies, because they can speak, right? But the Department of Treasury loves doing work with SDVOSBs. The Department of Agriculture, Veterans Affairs does more work with SDVOSBs than almost any other agency out there. So you bring a diversity of opportunity when you have an SDVOSB that you're going after work with. And here's something that a lot of folks don't know or say when they're talking about, well, why a vet, why an SDVOSB? So we are put in schoolhouses and trained on very technical things very fast. Hey, go be a jet mechanic in 18 weeks. And oh, by the way, when you get to your first duty station, the boss expects you to be able to go turn a wrench on the correct jet engine and get that thing running day one, right? So you're expected to perform. So veterans in general have a very high aptitude for learning very technical stuff very fast, so they can either grow contracts or take on more of the work as the teaming agreement or the JV or whatever matures, because they have a bent towards learning technical stuff very fast and applying it as soon as they learn it.
And Doc, so you mentioned Department of Treasury, Department of Agriculture. Xavier, obviously, CRS has been very successful with DISA, but where else are you seeing opportunities for SDVOSBs, and are there particular industries where you see a heavy concentration of SDVOSB participation?
Yeah, so I'm seeing, so one of the things that I do in my particular job, myself as well as somebody that works for me, every morning, the way we start our day is we go into eBuy and we go into sam.gov and we do a sort and search for specific opportunities that are out there. And one of the things that I'm seeing is there are a lot of service-disabled, veteran-owned small business set-asides that are coming out within not just DoD, but also within DHS. I'm seeing across pretty much every agency that uses eBuy for their acquisition process. I'm seeing a lot of service-disabled, veteran-owned small business set-asides there. So one of the things that a tribal would get with partnering with us would be, we can overcome that barrier to entry to a specific agency that you might not already be at, that we're in. And really, that's the important thing is like, if you're trying to break into a particular agency, and if you can partner with a company that is already in that agency, then your cost of sale is going to go down, because that's just as important. It's not more important to have like a large pipeline like some companies do as it is to have things where you have a high P-win, right? It's more important to have a high P-win and go after things where you have a relationship. The customer knows you. You understand the customer. You responded to the market research. And when you respond to market research, then the customer gets a chance to see how you're going to write and how you can, and when you respond to market research, you can also ask that particular customer for a meeting, right? Yes, you can contact the contracting officer if you can find their information and ask them for a meeting, but 9 times out of 10, they're not going to respond to you. And if they do respond to you, then it's probably going to include an OSDBU at that particular agency, and they're going to ask if you responded to market research. And if the answer is no, then you're probably not going to get a response. So one of the things that I would definitely recommend is, respond to these market researches that are out there, and then after you respond, then ask to meet with the requirement owner, and then 8 times out of 10, you're probably going to be able to get a meeting in that way, and that's one of the ways that we've been able to kind of reduce the barrier to entry to some of the things that we've been successfully bidding on lately.
So, Trevor, you mentioned like industries or sectors. So we see obviously a lot of cyber IT. Somebody commented earlier today about the IRS folks using their own hotspots and stuff. So the government needs a lot of help with cyber and IT and that kind of thing. But professional services, that came up today too. Hey, that's one of those words you kind of want to stay away from, like consulting or whatever. But professional services, we see a lot of demand in facilities maintenance and management. Right? We see a lot of, look, here's the deal, right? Regardless of what's going on down the street or across the river, the federal government has a pretty big footprint, right? So those buildings, those utilities, all those things need maintenance, right? Remediation. So there's a lot of work across the entire GovCon space in facilities maintenance, access control, physical security, stuff that you would kind of take for granted, but somebody's got to do it, and the government employees don't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Xavier, you mentioned that your daily market research or market survey routine, and as I'm sure many of the folks in the room know, the rule of two for small business set-asides, requires that a contracting activity set aside a procurement when there's a reasonable expectation that two small businesses or SDVOSBs can do that work. So regardless if you're an SDVOSB or if you're a hub zone, the message is respond to RFIs, right?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that out. I want to put a little tip out there, something that I do. That's actually a really good point. So whenever I see market research and it's something that, let's just say a large business has had as the incumbent, but I want it to go small. So because of the rule of two, you got to have another small business company that's your friend and say, hey, I'm going to respond to this. I need you guys to respond to it too. And they're like, oh, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, what's in it for me? Right, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say that. It's like, well, this work is going to go small, and maybe we can bid on it or something like that. And even sometimes, they were like, well, it's going to take time. Like, what do you need? Do you need help writing your response or anything? So if you have other small business companies that are your friends, like competimates or whatever you want to call them, try to get another one to respond to it. So that way, ask them to send you confirmation that they responded. Then you'll know that the rule of two, has to take place when it comes to the agency. Just in case if it comes out large bit or full and open, then you will know that at least 2 smalls responded to it. So then you'll have the ability to go and contact the OSDB at that particular agency and say, hey, I know 2 smalls responded to this. And as long as both of those responses were capable, then it should have been set aside as a small. And I will tell you that it works to do that. And Trevor knows that it works to actually do that.
Yeah, we've advised CRS on a couple of
Yes.
letters to agencies to remind them of the applicability of the rule of two. So I think it's a really crucial insight because no matter if you're, like I said, an 8A or an SDVOSB or hub zone, whatever it is about that grunt work of market research and responding to those RFIs so that the government has the information that it needs to make these decisions because, ultimately it's a flow chart. Hey, are there 2 small businesses that can do this? Yes. Well, we got to set it aside. We don't have a choice. But if you're not responding to those RFIs, if you're not responding to those market research requests or sources sought, then the government doesn't have that information. And is it a huge effort to put together one of these market research responses, or
it all depends on a particular agency. Like every requirement is going to be different. From a DoD standpoint, it's not that hard to put together because we've done it so many times and we have a really good template and a way of doing things. But again, every agency is going to have different requirements for it. The majority of things that come out DoD, they all follow the same template in terms of market research. You're going to have to provide the same type of information. The only thing that's going to be different is the questions that you're going to have to answer. But all of the front matter in your market research response is always going to be the same for DoD specific opportunities. So it isn't a lot of work, but then you got to kind of look at the risk versus reward, right? It's like, do I want to put forth this effort to do this, because the reward in the end is you can actually get a contract. And then there's also the thing is like if you don't bid, you don't win. And then if you don't respond to the market research, then it's not going to get set aside as a small, so you can bid. So we're very particular in the opportunities that we go after. And if there is something that we do want to get set aside small, we always respond to the market research and make sure, and we always make sure that there's another small as well that responds to it.
And one of the differences between, the SDVOSB program and the 8A program is the 8A program is of limited duration. So you have a set amount of time, and once you've graduated, you've graduated. SDVOSBs are different. You can stay playing, like I said, competitive range has been incredibly successful with DISA for years, still small, and as long as you're small, you're still able to capitalize on that past performance, on that successful delivery that, other programs aren't necessarily the case. So how do you think about those, sort of managing that size standard? Because, it's very easy to blow through those receipts and, maybe it's not the most profitable of work, but you've got to manage that size status. Is that something?
Yeah, that's a good point. So we're very deliberate in the things that we bid and the things that we don't bid. We're only going to be small probably for another few months, maybe a year, maybe less. But we've been very deliberate in the things that we bid and the things that we don't bid because of that particular reason right there. So, yeah.
And one of the, so we've heard that there's a number of opportunities at a number of different agencies. It's not just about the VA. Now, the VA, it's very easy to make a sole source award. The law is very clear. It's very easy. For the Department of Defense, for all of the other agencies, it's a little bit more difficult. The contracting officer has to make a determination that there's only one SDVOSB that can do the work. So there's a difference between the VA and the FAR regulated agencies. But in terms of those sole sources, so maybe we're not seeing a lot of sole sources necessarily come out for the SDVOSB world, but in competitive, I mean, are you seeing Xavier, the quantity of, and Doc, the quantity of SDVOSB set-asides increasing? Do you see that decreasing, especially given the administration's sort of public commitments to veterans in federal contracting?
Well, one of the unique things at VA is, and Xavier has much more knowledge on the rest of this and can speak to that, but one of the interesting things at the VA is the amended regulations that they have, the VAAR. So that gives the contracting officer a lot of leeway in sole sourcing to an SDVOSB, essentially is what it does. So we've seen that go up 1,400, let's say, over the last couple years. So there's another opportunity that if you partner with an SDVOSB, they might open that door for you because the contracting officer has a lot more freedom in the decision to award.
So one of the things that I'm seeing is I'm kind of seeing a steady state for SDVOSB set-asides in GSA eBuy as well as SAM.gov. But what I am seeing is that there are JNAs that have been written and are being written by DoD organizations to SDVOSBs, not necessarily because they are an SDVOSB, but because they have been doing the work for a while, they understand the work, and they responded to the RFI, or nobody else responded to the RFI. So again, the market research, if nobody responds to the market research, then that gives the contract officer the right to be able to write a JNA justification that, hey, only this company that's in there can do that. I have seen that happen a lot with some service-disabled veteran owns, just because nobody's responded to the market research. They get JNAs and then they get it sole sourced to them.
And so when you when you were wearing the uniform and performing that maintenance dock that you said on the aircraft engine, the next day you hung up the uniform again and you can go back as a civilian and do that exact same work, right?
So the question is
transitioning.
The transition,
because you were working in uniform on these systems, and these systems tend only to get more complicated. They don't get less complicated. But now, doing it on the other side, having that unique sort of experience with these, whether it be aircraft engine, whether it be IT services, whether it even be, who knows what Diego Garcia is.
Right. So what we've seen in our experience in that 10 years helping over 17,000 veterans is about a third of our alumni go on to start SDVOSBs, and they do it because, and I don't know why this is the condition, but on Friday I'm the government representative on a lot of projects, right? I'm wearing the uniform. The contractor's doing work on my job site or whatever. On Monday, it's like I'm starting all over. Mm-hmm. They don't know who I am. They don't remember me. None of my enlisted classification codes transfer out of the service, and I'm carrying a tool bag. I just took you back to a shipyard 30 years ago, but you know what I mean? So a lot of veterans kind of chafe under that. Mm-hmm. And they say, well, I know what the KO and the Corps and the functional wanted because I was representing government owner last week, mm-hmm. and now I don't. So they'll parlay that into a successful small business because now they can apply the same technical skills, the same intangible skills that they had, and not only win, but do the work to the government standard.
So just as we saw, this administration reduce the small disadvantage goaling from 15 to the statutory 5, it's very possible and perhaps even likely that the administration could raise the SDVOSB goal, which was previously 3 and now 5. But that could go to 15. And so, there could be a lot more work for SDVOSBs out there to meet that goaling.
Trevor, to that point real quick, so I'm going to put 2 dots together for you. I've heard them in 2 separate talks today. I just want to make sure we put a clear line to connect them. Is when you may not be a marketing company, right? You do technical X, you sell government Y or whatever, but you're always selling. right? Just like every Marine is a rifleman, everybody in your company, especially the founder, better be a salesman, right? And if you don't know how to do it, you better learn how to do it. So marketing. When the new SecDef came in, and yes, I wore this pocket square before he ever took office, all right? The new SecDef came in and made it very clear, hey, training and travel are out. It's an easy line item to go kill, right? Happens in companies all the time when times get lean. He replaced it with DOD mission is what? Find, close with, and destroy enemies to defend the homeland and the Constitution, period, right? So they looked at us right away. Oh, a training company soaking X million a year from the government or whatever the 19-year-old thought, right? We just changed our marketing really quick to a very simple statement. Hey, SecDef, all the training we provide can make our soldiers, sailor, airmen, Marines more lethal when they're still in your force. And oh, by the way, boss, when they get out, now they're set up for civilian success. So, you know, if you're worried about your work, go back and find the agencies that you're doing the work for. Make sure you know what their mission is, to Xavier's point, and make sure that everything you do is couched in those terms. Now you're solving problems and now you're value add, and you don't have to advocate for them. Once you educate them, they go advocate for you. And I think that's key.
Yes, that's actually some really, really good points. So one of the things that we did when the new administration came in is we revamped our entire website. So for everybody in here, I'm going to do a shameless plug. GetCRS, GETCRS.com is our website. So if you go there, it's been fully revamped as of like a few months ago. So to Doc's point, make sure that if you're trying to sell, let's just say to the DOD, make sure you understand what the SecDef is saying the DOD is going to be about. And if he's saying that it's not going to be about training and travel and consulting, don't have that all over your website. If he's saying that, you know, advisory contracts is going to get cut, don't have that all over your website. If you do, then, you know, you'll be on the chopping block. Additionally, to Doc's point, what you want to do is if you do have those contracts, right, because some contracts have those in the name. If your contract hasn't already been cut, what you would want to do is work with your customer to make sure that they understand why your work should be justified and make sure that it's important to the federal government. Just make sure that you have a really good relationship with your customers so that if the time does come and you have to justify why it's important, then you have a really good understanding of what you're actually delivering in terms of a capability, not necessarily in terms of like a document or things like that.
And Xavier, would you mind speaking to that justification aspect? Because,
sure.
I mean, competitive range has been asked to justify work, which, I mean, it's very surprising given, one would assume immunity almost from.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so one of my contracts was an advisory, well, it was a CETA contract, and as everybody knows, the A in CETA stands for advisory. So that particular contract did come up. It did make the list. So basically, you know, when Doge came in, they looked at all of the contracts that had keywords in it, and if it did, then they said, okay, well, this is out. So unless you're able to justify it. So I was able to write a justification and make sure that the customer understood the importance of this particular contract and focused it more on the engineering aspect, because everybody knows the E in CETA stands for engineering, right? So we focused it more on the engineering and the actual capability that we were providing to the government, not necessarily advisory stuff, but the capability that we're providing. So that the government understood, like, hey, this is important because of the work the engineering work, you know, that we're doing here. I think it's really important to kind of understand, like, who you're doing business with, where you're doing business, and what they're looking for and what they're not looking for, so that if you do have to write a justification, you'll know how to go about doing that. Thanks.
And if you haven't already started writing your justifications, now is a good time to start. Okay. So in addition to, you know, kind of closing us out, when we talked about teaming and we've talked about, you know, partnerships, we have the 8As. So, you know, as a closing pitch, you know, either to 8As or to other large businesses, you know, to what extent, you know, you think it makes sense to partner with I can get an award up to $100 million. Why would I bother with a SDVOSB that can't even get a sole source? So, Doc, what would you say would be, you know, your pitch or your presentation to large partners that are looking for, you know, potential SDVOSBs, but
Well, I think in today's environment, it's moving fast, it's extremely chaotic, completely dynamic. The requirements for the government's changing all the time. I mean, lots of stuff changes very fast. Again, my bottom line pitch would be, you know that you have a company full of people, because we tend to hire like-minded veterans. You have a company full of people that you don't have to babysit. They self-start, they do the work, they stay till the job is done, they come back from lunch. You don't have to ask them for 3 bullet points about what they did last week because you can see the work all over the place. So, I mean, that's what I would say is you can get stuff done. You don't have to check it. You know it's done right. The government can walk out there and inspect it anytime they want, and you don't have to babysit them.
And Xavier, as a successful SDVOSB, when you're looking for teaming partners, what are you looking for in identifying capabilities, capacity?
Yeah, so one of the things that we, just specific to my company, one of the things we're looking for is we're always looking for a great partner that can fill a specific niche capability for something that we're going after. We don't necessarily sub a lot. We've only been a sub once in our entire history of the company, so that's not something that we look to do ever. But in terms of bringing on a good partner to us, we're always looking for somebody that has a good history, because we do our research on all of the companies. Like, a lot of companies come to us, and let's just say a tribal came to us and said, hey, we want a partner. We can get sole source up to $100 million. And then I looked them up in FPDS, and they've never had a sole source contract over $2 million or something like that, which is good, but they were trying to sell me on something that they weren't able to achieve, themselves. So one of the things that we look for is honesty and transparency, right? If you tell me that you can do something or have done something, then I'm going to verify it. And if I can't verify it, then, once that ethics and trust is out the window, then that's it. That's it. So basically for us, we always look for companies that basically just do what they say they can do, right? If they do what they say they can do and it's something that we're looking for, then we're always open to find a good partner for things that we're looking at.
Any questions from the audience for Doc or for Xavier? Questions about the SDVOSB program? No? Anything?
Questions about how to run a bead?
I think we're right before happy hour, so I think...
Oh, okay. Well, I want to thank Xavier and Doc both for joining us on the panel and thank them for their expertise.